Okay, so this segment, Easy Street, is basically, we call it that because they're generally the higher income and higher levels of education of the segments. They don't have any problems paying their bills. They tend to be more liberal in their outlook, and they're not really interested in spending much time on energy. They do see the environmental benefits and think that's important to save energy for those reasons. They don't want to waste, but they're not likely to be heavily engaged. And so we have created for each segment a section on what we think those segments would benefit to hear from in terms of products and services and messages. They'll be generally two most challenging segments to engage. So they'll be interested in products and services and messages that help them set it and forget it. Then we have the concerned greens, the biggest segment that I told you about. They tend to also be moderate and liberal. They also tend to be high income and high education, but they do have serious concerns about the environment. They tend to be largely white and tend to be more female than male. They're very receptive to messages that intertwine saving energy and saving money with helping the environment. And you wouldn't just say save the planet or anything like that. You would say help the grid ramp up renewable energy, help electric vehicles use energy that would otherwise go to waste by charging overnight, and messages similar to that. This group also really likes new technology. They're early adopters, so they would be your best segment to approach to help learn what consumers want in terms of products and services. They'll be in the front lines for that. Do-it-yourself and save group is very diverse. They have a large Hispanic group, only average levels of education, not uneducated, not overeducated, just average. They tend to be conservative, and they tend to be very interested in do-it-yourself. So they will be very interested in time-of-use programs. They want to save money, and they're not really interested in any kind of environmental message. So this is the segment where you would say, manage your energy, save money, do it yourself, and they would really respond well to that. Young America, these are the people just out of college. They may be living in apartments. They may be just out of high school. They tend to just be in the early stages of beginning their career and their lifestyle choices. They are very concerned about the environment, though. You know, this is the group that may have driven Obama into office or that respond to Al Gore's type of messages. They're not necessarily interested in environmental programs, but they are interested in finding out how to become more sustainable. So they're not easy pickings. There's no one here that's an easy picking. Everyone has to be approached in the right way and offered an easy way to understand how the smart grid works for them and what they can do to manage their energy. And so this group would be more of a long-term development opportunity and enter into home ownership. And then the last segment, this is our traditionals. This is going to be your least likely segment to become engaged in the smart grid. They're predominantly elderly. They're very conservative, and they see no problems with the way energy is consumed or produced now. They don't see anything worrying about the environment, and they're really interested in their comfort. However, they are interested in making sure they don't waste, so there's some small opportunities there for engaging the traditionals. But in terms of your best segments, this would not be one of them. So we didn't really need a big study to know this. I think everyone knows this, but it's important that we have it documented, and that is that most people don't know anything about the smart grid. In fact, over 50% of the people have never even heard of that term, and another 20 to 25% have heard of the term but have no idea what it means. And so now we're into the 70% range. And that only leaves about a quarter of people that actually do know what it is, and who knows what they really think. But overall, what we're doing is we're tracking favorability. Of those that are aware of the smart grid and smart meter and say they know what it means, most of them are favorable toward it. So now when you think about how many people have never heard of it and then how many people have heard of it but have positive feelings, that's very high, either neutral or very high. The actual number of people who are opposed to the smart grid is quite tiny. And I think we all know that's a very vocal minority out there, but we've documented that here. And then what we did was we read participants a series of messages to try to get an understanding of how each message, both positive and negative, would either increase or decrease their support for the smart grid. And you can read this across. If you see the long bars, how they change as we go through these next couple of slides, you'll see how they change according to the segment, which falls in rows. So you'll see Easy Street is purple, and Concerned Greens is greens, and Traditionals is brown. So the first message, Smart Grid projects create tens of thousands of jobs and an estimated billions. You'll see that increases support. The next one, many components of our grid are decades old and wearing out. That increases support. We actually read 8 positive messages, and we read, I think, 6 negative messages. So you'll see, in many cases, the negative message does not decrease support very much, although it did decrease support a lot for the traditionals. If you scan your eye across the right side on the brown column, you'll see that bar is increasing on the decreased support row. And so what this does is it helps everyone understand how to message the smart grid and the smart meter according to the segments in ways that they would be interested in hearing. And I don't have time to dive into all this. All, I guess, 16 questions are in this research and on our website, available for anyone to download at any time. There's no charge.
Kent asks, Patty, what effort is the Smart Grid Consumer Collaborative making to inform state regulators of these segments and of the importance of segmentation? Because traditional approvals tend to be, one size fits all. And I'll just add on to what Kent said. I was just in, I don't want to get many trouble, so I'll say a large western state on the West Coast. They were complaining that their regulators, they had wanted to do segmentation, and the regulator said, anything you offer to one group, you must offer to them all.
Yep, that is a big problem, and I recognize that problem. I've heard that problem. I've actually heard it said myself at NARUC meetings. And what I'm doing, what SGCC is doing, is we have been invited and are making progress getting to know NARUC and getting to know the committee chairs. I was invited to speak at the winter meeting and presented this research. And it was a very full room. It was a consumer education committee. And I presented this research and emphasized strongly to regulators there that one size fits all is the wrong approach, that it will be very challenging for utilities to address consumer needs at that level. And I gave this actual piece of research and showed them that consumers do want time of use variable rate pricing, and consumers fall into different categories. And the research was very well received. I got a lot of questions and a lot of compliments. And then, unfortunately, the very next morning, the plenary speaker on the stage said, people don't want time of use pricing, people only want one thing, and really spoke oppositionally to what I had said. And I went up to him afterwards and asked where his research was, and he didn't have any. So it's really challenging to overcome that issue. And in terms of what we're doing, I'm speaking at NARUC, and I'm also working with some members who are partners who've invited me to speak at the regulatory level at
that's very helpful.
Priority states.
Well, thank you. We've got only 30 seconds, but one more quick one from Matt, who wants to know if you have any insights as to which segment is most likely to produce opponents, or if there's any common behaviors and beliefs that tie together those opponents.
Well, the slide that's up right now, the excellence in consumer engagement, is actually the piece of research that deals with how to avoid creating components. Okay. We documented there in this one best practices for engaging consumers, and that's on our website as well.
Thank you, Patty. Very helpful.